We are back on MorningLine. Thanks for joining us. Final segment with malpractice attorney Clint Kelly. If you'd like to join in the conversation, some calls, and we've had a few people I think Clint's going to get back with. 737-7587 this morning. It's just good not to wait on it. In the meantime, we'll see if another call or two come in, Clint. But just wanted to ask, aside from we talked about the wrong body part, which you say is above all an egregious thing, or the wrong patient, what other cases right now are in vogue, if you will, that have come about? I know there was clotting issues.
Yeah, pulmonary embolism and blood clots in hospitals are still a real menace. I think partly because the hospitals have been slow in implementing policies to try to prevent blood clots. There are ways now that you can prevent blood clots that can lead to death. You know, pulmonary embolism can kill you. And we know now, modern medicine knows why these clots form and why they kill. They also know how they can be prevented, and one of the best ways to do it is they inject a blood thinner, it's usually heparin, that they will give a patient before the patient has surgery if the patient's going to be immobilized for any long period of time. You know, if you're going to have a patient that's going to be in bed for 24 plus hours where they're not moving at all, you know, blood pools, Nick, it congeals like Jell-O. And if a clot gets big enough, a piece of it can break off and lodge itself all the way in your lungs and kill you. So we're learning now that by injecting blood thinners in these patients, that will prevent this pooling that occurs at the bottom of the legs and the deep veins, and then prevent this blood clot from occurring. But it's just been, hospitals have been slow in enacting those policies.
One thing, I knew you were coming on today, and I just wanted to ask your opinion, and I don't know if as a malpractice attorney how much you may be involved in this, but you know right now there's some very high profile opioid litigation going on, and the malpractice aspect of it would be some of these physicians that were unscrupulously writing prescriptions left and right to clients who became addicted and sometimes died. Is there a component of this for attorneys like you, as these class action suits are holding these big pharmaceuticals accountable?
Yes. I have not had one of these cases, Nick.
Okay.
So what I'm telling you is what I am getting from discussions with colleagues. But you probably know this from reporting on TV, whether you're watching 60 Minutes. There are some doctors in the pain management business who are drug pushers. Let's just call it what it is.
That's exactly right, Clint.
They are being held to account now more often than in the past, simply because there's so much information out there about opiates that we know now, and the physicians knew this long before we did, that the addictive qualities of a drug are so strong that some people cannot be put on those drugs, and if they are, they can only be put on for a short period of time, whereas these drug pusher type doctors were just handing them out like candy. In fact, there was a doctor in Virginia, 60 Minutes report on this, where he had a line outside his building going all the way to the street of these people who were waiting to get into his office simply to get a prescription refill for opioids. And the guy was making tons of money.
He's making $1 zillion on this, right?
Yeah, and many of these people had no legitimate medical basis for it. They were addicted, so they kept coming to him. He kept prescribing the meds. And the case against the opiate companies is, of course, partly that they knew about this, but they could see that this was happening with certain doctors.
And they didn't do anything about it.
Correct.
Yeah.
So there's the drug pusher, and then there's the major manufacturers.
Well, because they like it. This doctor here, they see it happening, but he's prescribing their product and they're selling more. And what was amazing to me in some of these cases, the damages that is being sought, and just to give you an idea, that these pharmaceuticals are so big, are in the billions of dollars, which I think even if the pharmaceuticals lose, which I hope they do, is not going to damage their overall bottom line, because they have tells you how much money they've made on opioids. My goodness, I was stunned when I saw one of these cases, the damages are in the billions of dollars to pay out, you know, and how much money have they made on this?
I don't know, Nick, but I'm telling you, this is as close to tobacco and the tobacco litigation as you're ever going to get, simply because we have enough evidence, the public has enough evidence about opioids and what it's done to understand that the manufacturers who had this information years, maybe decades before, did nothing but contribute to it. Yeah. And they all have blood on their hands, just like the tobacco companies do. Yeah. So, in answer to your question, yes, there are some doctors that you can sue for that. I haven't had a case like that. I know there have been some cases like that, some even in Tennessee. But it's the manufacturers that are really going to take it on the chin, and they should.
Yeah. Meanwhile, medical marijuana is illegal in Tennessee, but you can go get your opioid prescription. Don't even get me started on which's worse for you, okay? There's no debate that. But one, the bad one's legal, and the other ain't.
Well, they're now using medical marijuana as a means to get people off opioids.
Darn right. If you're on marijuana instead of opioids, you're doing better. Now, I'm not saying, sometimes, let's be clear on this too, by the way, there are some folks who legitimately benefit from opioids in a controlled setting to deal with severe pain.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just saying. I mean, there are people that will call in and say, well, I can't live without some of this sometimes.
It's treatment. It's been recognized as treatment to help people get off of opioids.
I was given oxycodone for a torn rib cartilage for 2 days, and I didn't even finish the prescription because I was so afraid of taking the darn pills.
Right.
Goodness gracious.
You'll be addicted in 5 days. That's how quick you... Because, see, there are just some people that are hardwired for that drug.
Oh, I know. That too.
And the drug companies knew this. They knew this.
Meaning that they know, it's just like tobacco, where you get addicted to the nicotine or whatever, and they've got a client for life, built-in money coming in. It's the money, bottom line, and it's evil.
And how many thousands of people have they killed?
Jeez Louise. All right, as we kind of wrap up the end of the show, I was trying to think, racking my head. Every once in a while, there is some high-profile case. There hasn't been any high-profile, like with celebrity malpractice cases lately. I just didn't know if you've come across any in the journals or anything that maybe made some national headlines. I just haven't seen that. We talked about how one aspect of this, plastic surgery, breast augmentation and things like this. You say you're seeing more women that are now having the breast surgery they had reduced and having the implants taken out.
This has been in the media too.
Yeah, that's something
it's becoming more common. As women, ones who've had implants, recognize the risk of the implant leaking, or over time the appearance begins to deteriorate. They're wanting the implants taken out. In some cases, they'll have a smaller implant put in its place, or they'll just have it taken out altogether. And that also has risk for the patient, because anytime you cut on
just another surgery.
It's just another surgery. But you and I were talking about watching that show Botched. Those are those are the worst of the worst in terms of the foul ups. I think Nick, I'll tell you, when it comes to plastic surgery, there's a lot of leeway. And people basically have signed up for the risk because they know what they're getting themselves into.
So you're not having a lot of malpractice cases out of that because they know. I look at some of those people on that show Botched, and I'm like, it's amazing what people will do to their body and how they seem to lose perspective at some point once they get into the cycle of surgery, if they have the money to pay for it half the time. And I'm like, have you looked at yourself in the mirror lately? What on earth? And I see people like that in public around here every once in a while. You can tell people who have had it, and if it's done poorly or overdone, you're like, I don't care what. You looked better before, man. Or sir. You see them both getting it. I just don't get it.
I don't either, but it's still here, and as long as there are people who look on TV and see Kim Kardashian and want to look like Kim Kardashian, there's going to be a business for these plastic surgeons to try to the Brazilian butt. You wait. You think the breast implants are bad? You wait till those begin to deteriorate and break down, and look at the litigation that's going to come from that.
Really, because it's just such a large implant, right?
It's a large implant in an area where, in particular, it's not as easy to fix as the breast. When that thing breaks down, because of the way they have to hollow out the skin or the tissue around it, once that thing comes out, it is very difficult to replace. And so you're going to have some bad results, some real disfigurement as those begin to break down.
Vanity, whatever it is, it's absurd. Anything else with regard to any class action suits that you're involved with right now? Are you doing anything federally?
No.
But will you sometimes do federal lawsuits?
There have been some cases. We've had some cases with Xarelto where people got injured with Xarelto. We had some cases involving testosterone. Those cases have resolved.
The male fertility clinics, I still hear ads for them all the time, and they come and go, and you've had cases in the past. We did a story on one of them where damages were really done.
I assume, Nick, they got their act together, because I haven't gotten a call and I haven't heard of a major problem as a result of that. And maybe part of it was them learning how to do the business so that they wouldn't have bad results.
Or it's like you said, what's so important, it's a business for you, and this is how you make your living, and the injured patient needs to get compensated. But when you win, when something's done wrong, hopefully that gets attention of an organization. And if they're not doing it right because they know it's the right thing to do, they're doing it right because they don't want to get burned again in court. So I think maybe some of the litigation that came out for some of these clinics, the male clinics, enhancement clinics, whatever, they cleaned up their act, and hopefully they're doing a good job now.
I mean, I'm not trying to put a clinic out of business.
No.
I'm just trying to send a message to them so they'll clean up their act, and I think that's what's happened. I think, lawsuits make a difference, Nick. There really is a good part to a lawsuit in terms of changing behavior that's better for the patients. At the end of the day, is this going to help patients, help consumers? It used to be the argument was, oh, lawsuits are going to drive doctors out of Tennessee. Well, all of you watching TV, go out there and look in the directory or go online and see how many doctors are practicing in Tennessee. They're not leaving Tennessee. They're coming into Tennessee, along with everybody else, in particular, who's coming into Nashville. So don't get concerned that lawsuits are hurting anybody. In fact, I would argue they're making medicine better and safer.
Yeah, and I see why, because you hold folks accountable. Real quick, as we wrap things up, remind folks one more time, and we'll put the number up on the screen. I'll do it again later, but you're in Hendersonville.
I'm in Hendersonville, but of course I take cases all over Tennessee. You can reach me at 615-8000000. Michelle does my intakes. The call is confidential. The call is free. And you don't pay a dime unless I recover money from you, from the defendant for you. And Nick, I probably settle about 75% of my cases, so the odds are that the patient will never have to go to a jury trial, because I make sure I pick the case that I can win.
Right, meaning you can't take them all.
Correct.
And you'll explain to folks if you can't. By the way, do you on occasion take a case maybe out of Kentucky with,
Sure.
or I mean, so you talked
now.
about you do all around the state, but
Yeah.
could you be called in, especially because of your expertise, or how does that work? By the way, do you get a lawyer to work with you there?
Yeah. We've got a law firm in Kentucky that works with us,
Gotcha.
and also we got a lawyer in Clarksville who's licensed in Kentucky. We take cases in Southern Kentucky as well. I'm glad you mentioned that. So, but the great thing about what I do is I know enough courts around the state to be able to handle cases all over the place.
And you know a lot of experts.
I do. I have access to just about any kind of experts you can have.
You have to have medical experts sometimes. If it goes to trial, that's some of the big expense, is having medical experts testify.
That's what separates me from other lawyers who are not board certified. I have access to experts they don't.
You have a Rolodex full of them, and I've met a few of them over the years. Clint, awesome. Good show today.
Yeah,
it's good seeing you. Take care of yourself, and we'll see you again in about a month. What do you say?
That'd be great.
Be back with a programming note, as well as I'll put the number up again for Clint's office in case you want to get a pen and paper. Remember, that call costs you nothing. Don't wait a year. Your case may go away. We'll be right back.